Here is a world of communication, bringing together all people in a new era of understanding.
Elektrischer Reporter.
Die Basis, liebe Zuschauer daheim an den Empfangsgeräten oder von wo auch immer Sie uns gerade zusehen. Die Basis einer gesunden Ordnung ist ein großer Papierkorb, signierte einst der Schriftsteller Kurt Tucholsky. Der Schriftsteller und Philosoph David Weinberger sinniert in seinem Buch Everything is Miscellaneous hingegen über die Macht der neuen digitalen Unordnung, die seiner Meinung nach die Chance bietet, überkommene Ordnungsvorstellungen zu entsorgen. Über dieses, jenes und anderes habe ich mich jüngst mit David Weinberger unterhalten.
It's about unlearning the lessons of how to organize the lessons that we've learned from the real world, which are totally inappropriate to how we organize digital information, and turns out are also pretty much inappropriate to how we organize ideas even off the web. So new principles of organization, and that has an effect. Those new principles have an effect on very basic things such as who's an authority, why do we trust people, what sources are we going to trust, and how we're going to, who owns information and how we're going to pull it together. Newspapers, printed on paper, have to, because they're printed on paper, editors have to make decisions about what is worthwhile to be included and what's more important than what, because you've got to position the stuff somewhere on paper. And furthermore, because it's on paper, it's the same for everybody who reads it. So you get one version of it. And so we have come to invest these paper objects with an authority that is really just based on the limitations of atoms, that you can only make the same version for everybody and you don't have a lot of room in them. So certainly the decisions of editors are very, very important, but everybody knows that no newspaper completely reflects any one person's interests. I mean, you skip articles in the newspaper every time, and there's stuff that's not in the newspaper that you'd be interested in. That's just the way it is. So online, what we can do, and what we are doing, is take all of the articles that are in the newspaper, plus everything written by others not in the newspaper that have to do with what we care about, and find ways to pull together the sets of links, really, to what matters to us today. And we do this, so in effect, we're creating our own front page. It reflects our interests, and the way that we do it, because it can be very confusing, we don't sit there every day and say, I wonder what will be on the front page. Rather, a lot of it comes in through our email box, because people are recommending. They send an email saying, we've got to see this article or this joke or this cartoon or whatever it is, YouTube. And so others are doing the editorial function for us. And if we trust them and like them, we listen. Then we go to some sites that are pulling together based around their interests. You're a hobbyist, or you have a political commitment. You get used to going to a site that is pulling together these pieces. And so we have multiple ways now of pulling together a newspaper for ourselves that reflects our interests better than any printed newspaper could. Yes, I do worry about that. And Digg is an example I use with some reluctance, precisely because what makes it onto Digg's pages, which are recommended, what makes it onto the front page is what's recommended and thumbs up, they're voted on by readers. Digg turns out, because of its readership, to be sort of a tabloid newspaper for geeks and nerds and techies. And there's obviously a role for that. But if that's all the news anybody ever got, that would be unfortunate. And even if you're just interested in techie news, you're probably not just going to Digg. Digg is entertaining and occasionally surfaces stuff. You're probably also going, for example, to Slashdot, which is, it's not user recommended, but it's filtered by geeks, and then the comments, which are very important to Slashdot, have a filtering system as well. So Digg is a flawed example. Probably any one example is going to be flawed, but that's a particularly flawed one. The front pages that we're putting together include a lot of fluff. It's stuff generally that we want to read. And the question is, it's always comparative. It's never going to be perfect. Is it better than what we've been getting through the strictures of the mainstream press? And furthermore, most newspapers aren't very good. There are some astoundingly good newspapers, but The majority, it's a sorry truth, but most of the newspapers that most people read are tabloids. They're not very interested in news. They're interested in selling, and they've got the girly pictures and the gossip and all the rest of it. And even the really good newspapers, people aren't always reading the articles that we think they should. They're skipping the front page, they're going to the sports section. So the myth that because, let's say every city has one good newspaper, let's hope that's the case, that therefore we have a literate public that's more informed than what people are getting on the internet. I think we need to look at that empirically. I'm not at all convinced that's the case. I would like to think that I don't know. I would like to think that over the course of a day, most of us on the internet are getting some semblance of news that actually matters, but it's always going to be comparative. In the era of mass media, the economics tend to be towards favoring reaching many, many people. And frequently, not always, frequently the way that you do that is by simplifying the message. For marketers, this means coming up with a tagline and you repeat it over and over again. For politicians, and I have seen this and it's really frustrating, they don't want to get specific. So they'll say, I support broadband for all Americans. But then you want them to say, well, okay, great, how? And they don't want to say that because whatever they say, they're going to lose votes. They just got votes by saying broadband, but if they say it's this way, they'll lose votes. So there's the massness of it means that we stay simple and superficial. Not always, but way too often. You go online and what bloggers and many others do, but what bloggers do in general is what we humans do in general, which is to try to find what's interesting in what's being said, which means often finding the complexity that's hidden in the simplification. We also simplify. It's useful to clarify, to be clear and simple, but almost always then we say, okay, I got that, but what I don't understand is, and then you are making complex again. So in the realm of blogs, in the blogosphere, I mean, it's mainly, it seems to me, about taking what's been too simple and rejoicing in the ability to be complex and interesting. Candidates' mistakes are now captured and put on YouTube videos instantly, with the, I think beneficial result that the only way you can deal with this, just about, is to sort of laugh as a candidate and admit that you're just a stupid human like the rest of us. John Edwards, who's a very handsome man, there was a YouTube posted of him before some video address, will make up person around him, and he spends a literal 2 minutes getting his hair, his beautiful hair, exactly right. So 2 minutes of primping, and somebody posted it with, and underneath is the song from West Side Story, I Feel Pretty. And it's pretty much hilarious, and it's somewhat devastating as well. And so if you're John Edwards, what do? Do you denounce YouTube? And I think he did the right thing, which is just to sort of laugh at it and say, well, it caught me at a moment when I was being human and flawed and a little vain. And so if that's what happens because of the constant presence of then that's good. That allows us to get a little bit past the notion that our leaders are, we would like to believe that our leaders are superheroes because then we feel safe, but they're not, they never were, and in the present case, I don't even want to talk about it. And it helps us get past that, that's a good thing. So I mean, that's one small effect. Just briefly, I think it's really interesting watching campaign rhetoric, how politicians sound. And I don't know if this is the internet, I suspect it has something to do with it. They're sounding a lot less pretentious these days. The style of address, which years ago would be, that's how you give a speech, rousing. They don't do that so much anymore. They do a lot more intimate campaigning, a lot more with their ties off, and I think that is part of the intimacy that we're growing to expect from the internet. In general, no. No, I mean, politicians are, in general, about power, about getting themselves ahead of everybody else, using everything they can. It's campaigns are structured with the worst of the military and the worst of marketing. I mean, they're terrible mixes, and it's really bad for democracy. So we're watching now a generation of, this is the Democratic candidates in particular, and I'm a Democrat, we're watching a change, at least in the symbols of politics and the way people sound. Whether it's a genuine change or not, I don't know. But we have Obama, who's a wonderful candidate. Campaign. He never wears a tie. He's always relaxed. He's informal. He's direct. We have Edwards, who's using every known means of internet communication and direct communication. He Twitters. He's on all the social networks. We have Hillary awkwardly trying to sound, from my point of view, awkwardly trying to sound casual and relaxed, when in fact doing so using the internet as a means to distribute highly controlled videos. You know, she announced her candidacy in a video that she posted on her website, which sounds very webby. You know, that's great, except it was so tightly controlled, and it was clearly a way of routing around the mainstream media's control so she could control it. So, you know, it was on the web. From my point of view, it wasn't all that webby. So it's somewhat hilarious and it's sometimes uncomfortable to watch, in fact, overall. Let's leave aside how campaigns can use the internet for the moment. There are a set of things that seem fairly obvious, and I'm sure we'll innovate more of them, but to enable better communication between the government and the people, to coordinate activities, more bottom-up activities. There's been a lot of experimentation about how citizens can take on more of the activities and work together, whether it's cleaning up parks or roadways or whatever, and all of that's really interesting and important. I think, for me anyway, for my interest, the most interesting thing will be to see when the internet in the US is a commonplace. Right now it's not. I mean, lots of people are on, but we are now 24th in broadband access. We're falling rapidly in terms of the world. When we can count on internet access among citizens, I'm really interested to see how citizens connect to citizens and what we invent for ourselves, how we inform ourselves, how we use it as a tool for sort of virtual and also real-world assembly. That's stuff that we've seen. There's lots of that going on the web, but not directed at governance. Our ability to do that as citizens is just going to be fascinating. I have no idea where it's going to go, but it's such a... We know how exciting, inspiriting it is for citizens to connect with one another around issues that they care about, and when that becomes commonplace, I'm hopeful. I have no idea what it'll be, but I'm hopeful.
Das Ende der Schubladen, liebe Zuseher. Das Ende der Schubladen ist übrigens keine Ankündigung eines neuen Möbeltrends aus Skandinavien, sondern vielmehr der Titel der deutschen Ausgabe von Everything is Miscellaneous, die demnächst erhältlich sein soll. Und wo wir gerade gar nicht beim Thema sind, was ist eigentlich Web 2.0?
Web 2.0 ist, wenn du deinen Twitter-Feed durch Yahoo Pipes leitest, um ihn in Facebook zu integrieren.
Vielen Dank. Und das, liebe Zuschauer, war es auch schon wieder für heute. Ich verabschiede mich und wünsche Ihnen eine inspirierte Woche. Bleiben Sie uns gewogen und schalten Sie auch das nächste Mal wieder ein. Bis dahin bleibe ich Ihr elektrischer Reporter.
Mein Lieblingsmotto von der Unter- und Überschätzung exponentieller Prozesse hat zwei Pole: Enttäuschung und Schock. Zuerst Enttäuschung als Folge der Überschätzung, hernach Schock als Folge der Unterschätzung. Beides allerdings keine mentalen Ressourcen, um die Probleme der Zukunft adäquat zu meistern.